Okay, picture the scene. It's early 2026. Let's say you're currently renting an apartment in Kingston, or maybe you're part of the diaspora, sitting in a cold flat in London or Toronto, and you're looking to move back home to St. Anne.
Mm-hmm.
You wake up on a Tuesday morning, check your phone, and it feels like the entire island of Jamaica has decided to buy a house at the exact same moment.
The classic frenzy. Yeah, we've all seen it.
It's just loud. Your WhatsApp groups are buzzing with forwarded listings. Open houses have, lines out the door, cars backed up down the street. And naturally, your brain goes to that primitive place.
Right.
If everyone is doing this, it must be the right time. If I don't move now, I'm going to miss the boat. It feels like a survival instinct.
That is the safety in numbers fallacy working overtime.
Yeah.
I mean, we are biologically wired to think the herd knows where the water is.
Yeah.
If the herd is running, we run. It feels safe because it's shared behavior.
But today we're going to effectively dismantle that instinct. We're looking at a really fascinating piece from Jamaica Homes featuring some pretty contrarian insights from their founder, Dean Jones.
That's a great one.
The article is called Why Quiet Moves Often Build the Strongest Jamaican Homes. And the premise is, it's pretty bold. It suggests that doing what feels safe, joining that busy market, is actually the most dangerous financial move you can make.
Dangerous is exactly the right word.
Yeah.
And I want to be clear about the mission for this deep dive. We aren't just saying, be a contrarian for the sake of it.
Yeah.
We're looking at the mechanics of the market. We're examining the data that suggests following the crowd in Jamaica doesn't just cost you stress, it costs you millions of dollars in purchase price and missed opportunities.
Millions. Okay, that sounds like hyperbole.
It's really not, though. Not when you look at the long-term math. When you peel back the layers of how pricing works in a high-demand cycle versus a quiet one, the difference in your financial trajectory is just staggering.
Okay, before we get to the math, because I definitely want to challenge you on the numbers, let's talk psychology. Why does the busy season feel so seductive? I consider myself a rational person, but if I see a property that's been sitting on the market for 6 months with 0 offers, I immediately assume something's wrong with it.
Of course you do.
But if 10 people are fighting for it, I assume it's a gold mine.
That is social proof. It's external validation. If you're standing in a crowded open house, you don't have to trust your own judgment. You're piggybacking on the judgment of the 10 other people in the room. You think, well, they can't all be wrong.
But can they be? Or are they just seeing something I'm seeing?
Oh, they can absolutely all be wrong.
Yeah.
Or at least they can all be reacting to the same noise. The source material calls this the uncomfortable truth of the market. When you buy during the noise, you aren't paying for the intrinsic value of the house. You're paying a premium for the competition. You're paying for the privilege of beating someone else.
Wow, that is a painful way to look at it. I'm paying a fear tax.
Essentially, yes. And Dean Jones points out a really critical nuance here that I think most people miss. He argues that a lot of the panic buying we see in Jamaica is actually driven by what he calls imported advice.
Imported advice? You mean like people applying rules from other countries?
Exactly. Think about where we get our information. If you go on YouTube or TikTok right now and search real estate tips, the algorithm is probably feeding you content from the US, the UK, or Canada.
Sure. Wait for the crash, or watch the inventory reports, or interest rates are about to pivot. That's the standard playbook.
And that advice might be solid for Phoenix, Arizona, or Manchester, England. But if you try to paste that logic onto Montego Bay or Manville, you are going to get burned.
How so? Markets are markets, right? Supply and demand is a universal law.
To a point. But the mechanisms are different. The U.S. market is highly data-driven, it's massive, and it's fluid. Inventory can flood a U.S. suburb overnight because of a new development release.
Right.
Jamaica doesn't work like that. It's smaller, tighter.
And I would assume more relationship-driven.
Hugely. The source emphasizes that Jamaica has a long memory. Real estate there moves differently. It's slower to correct. So if you're sitting around waiting for a massive U.S.-style market crash where prices drop 20% in a quarter because the Fed sneezed,
you're going to be renting for a long time.
You might be waiting forever. Jamaican real estate is surprisingly resilient. It doesn't usually crash. It freezes. Transactions slow down, but prices don't necessarily plummet. So applying American timing strategies to the Jamaican market is like using a map of New York to navigate Kingston. You'll just get lost.
Okay, so if we can't rely on the imported metrics, let's talk about the biggest one everyone does obsess over, interest rates. I feel like this is the #1 reason people are sitting on the sidelines right now.
Absolutely.
They're saying, I'll buy when the rates drop. And honestly, can you blame them?
No, I don't blame them for the instinct,
Yeah.
but I do blame the logic. The source calls this the great interest rate distraction. It's the single biggest mental block for buyers.
But wait, calling it a distraction feels, I don't know, a bit dismissive. It's real money. A 1% difference on a mortgage is a lot of cash per month. If I can get 7% instead of 8, that saves me thousands a year. Why shouldn't I wait for that?
It is real money. I'm not denying that.
Yeah.
But the source argues that buyers are prioritizing the wrong number. Dean Jones has this great line. He says, too many buyers stare at the rate and miss the deal. You have to look at the whole picture, affordability cocktail. Affordability is the purchase price plus the terms, the valuation, and the rate.
Okay, but if the rate is high, the whole cocktail tastes bad.
Not necessarily. Let's do the math. Rates in Jamaica, they generally move slowly. They're conservative. They respond to broad economic stability. So you might wait 2 years for the rate to drop, say, 0.5%.
Or even percent, yeah.
Or even 1%. But what happens to the purchase price during those 2 years if the busy season kicks in?
Well, traditionally, prices go up.
They go up. And not just normal appreciation. If you're competing with 10 other buyers in a busy market, you might bid the price up by 2 or 3 million Jamaican dollars just to win.
I see where you're going. I saved a little on the monthly interest, but I just overpaid for the asset.
The math is brutal. You might save a tiny bit on the monthly interest rate, but you're now paying interest on a principal balance that is millions of dollars higher. And here's the kicker, and this is the part people forget.
What's that?
You can always refinance a rate later if the market improves. You can never, ever change the purchase price.
That's the tattoo.
That is the tattoo. That number follows you for 30 years. So strategically, the source argues it's much better to buy in a quiet market where you can negotiate the price down by millions, even if the rate is slightly higher today, because you're locking in a lower principal. That's a permanent win.
That's a really clear distinction. We focus on the rate because it's the headline news, it's what the central banks talk about, but the purchase price, that's the iceberg under the water.
Exactly. And the only way to attack that purchase price is to buy when you're the only one at the table.
Which brings us to this idea of strategic silence, this concept that quiet isn't just a lack of noise, it's a tool. But let's play devil's advocate again. We touched on this. If I'm looking at a house in a quiet market and nobody else is bidding, doesn't that make you worry? Why does nobody want this house? Is there a ghost?
Yeah, is the foundation cracking?
Right.
And sometimes, yes, there are bad properties. But usually, in a quiet cycle, it just means the buyers are tired, the property is fine, the market is just taking a nap. And this gives you something you can never buy in a busy market: time.
Time is money, usually. But here you mean time for what?
Time for due diligence. The source is very emphatic about this.
Yeah.
In a busy market, describe to me what a viewing looks like.
It's a blur. You get 15 minutes. You're trying not to bump into other people. You look at the kitchen, check the view, maybe flush a toilet if you're lucky, feel like an intruder.
Right. And then the agent says, we have 3 other offers coming in by 5 p.m. So what do?
You panic offer. You waive conditions. You skip the deep dive. You just want to win.
Haste make waste, as the Jamaican saying goes. And it really does. In Jamaica, land issues can be complex. We're talking about boundaries that might have drifted over 50 years.
Oh, wow.
Encroachments where a neighbor's fence is 6 feet onto your land, access rights, water pressure consistency.
Things you will not spot in a 15-minute walkthrough.
Impossible.
Yeah.
In a quiet market, you can go back 3 times. You can bring a surveyor. You can drive by the neighborhood on a Friday night to see if it's noisy. You can check the titles properly.
That Friday night drive-by is such an underrated tip. A neighborhood can look like paradise at 10 a.m. on a Tuesday and sound like a nightclub at 10 p.m. on a Friday.
Exactly. And if you buy in the busy season, you often find that out after you've moved in. In the quiet season, you find it out before you sign. The source calls this clarity over speed. You're trading the adrenaline of the win for the security of knowing what you're actually buying.
And avoiding those mistakes. I imagine fixing a boundary dispute in Jamaica isn't cheap.
It's a nightmare. It's expensive, it's legal, it's stressful. Real estate has a long memory. If you buy a problem because you rushed, that problem becomes your roommate, and you can't just ask it to leave.
So quiet gives us due diligence. That makes sense. But let's flip the script. What's happening in the seller's head during these quiet months? Because usually we think of sellers as the ones holding all the cards.
This is my favorite part of the analysis, the psychology of the seller. Because sellers are people too. They're just as emotional as buyers.
In a loud market, they seem pretty arrogant.
In a loud market, they are. They have what everyone wants. When buyers are plentiful, final price just means take it or leave it. They don't have to fix the leaky roof. They don't have to wait for your mortgage approval.
Right, they don't care about your timeline.
But when the silence sets in, when that phone stops ringing, the arrogance evaporates. It turns into anxiety. And anxiety is a buyer's best friend.
That sounds a little predatory. Feed on their anxiety.
It's just business. It's market dynamics. Dean Jones puts it this way. Price isn't just a number. It's a reflection of confidence. When a seller's confidence dips because the phone hasn't rung in 2 weeks, everything becomes negotiable. They start questioning their own asset.
So it isn't just about getting, like, 5% off the asking price?
No, and this is where sophisticated buyers win. It's about the terms. Maybe the seller is willing to cover the closing costs, which in Jamaica are significant, by the way. Maybe they're willing to include the furniture. Maybe they'll agree to a long closing period so you can get your finances in perfect order.
They become partners in getting the deal done, rather than adversaries.
Precisely. They stop looking for the perfect buyer, the one with all cash who closes in 2 weeks, and start looking for the workable buyer. If you're the only person showing interest and you're professional, you have massive influence over how that deal is structured.
So if you're a buyer in a quiet market, you're essentially leveraging the seller's desire for certainty.
Well,
You are solving their problem.
You are. You are the solution to their anxiety. And that is a powerful position to be in.
I want to circle back to something we touched on at the beginning, the emotional toll of waiting. We talk about waiting for the market like it's this passive, chill activity, like we're just sitting on a beach sipping coconut water.
Right. Until the headlines tell us to buy.
Yeah.
But it's not passive. That's the myth. Waiting is active work. It is exhausting.
It's the almost mode. You're constantly on edge.
Yes. You're almost ready. You're almost buying. You're constantly checking apps, constantly reading conflicting news. Is it time? Is it not time? What did the central bank say? The source describes this as a state of fatigue.
Right.
And the danger is that over time, you lose trust in your own instincts.
You get analysis paralysis.
Worse, you get decision fatigue. And eventually, people just snap. They get so tired of waiting that they buy at the wrong time just to end the process. They buy out of frustration, not out of strategy.
So how do we avoid that? If we're trying to be these quiet movers, how do we stay ready without burning out? The article talks about positioning.
Positioning is about being deliberate. It means doing the boring work when nobody is watching.
Okay, give me the checklist. What does a quiet mover actually do on a Tuesday?
Step 1, get pre-qualified. And I don't mean a rough guess on an online calculator. I mean, sit down with a lender and know exactly what your purchasing power is, to the penny.
So when you walk into that quiet negotiation, you're not saying, I think I can afford this. You're saying, here is the proof.
Exactly. In a relationship-driven market like Jamaica, showing up with your paperwork organized signals respect. It builds trust instantly. The seller thinks, okay, this person isn't wasting my time.
Frills.
Understand your real budget, not the if I get a bonus budget, the budget that lets you sleep at night. And finally, work with professionals who explain things, not just push things.
That is a key distinction.
In a busy market, agents are often just order takers. You want it. Sign here. Next. They don't have a choice. The volume's too high. In a quiet market, you can find agents, lawyers, surveyors who have the time to actually advise you. They can explain the process. Dean Jones emphasizes that this is the time to build your team.
It seems like the recurring theme here is control. When the market is loud, the market controls you. You're reacting. When the market is quiet, you control the process.
That's the perfect summary. The busy season is an illusion of safety. It feels safe because everyone is there, but it's actually high risk. High prices, low diligence, high stress.
Right.
The quiet season feels risky because you're alone, but it's actually high reward. Better prices, deep diligence, better terms.
But it requires courage. It requires being willing to move when your friends are telling you to wait.
It does. But as the source says, Jamaica doesn't reward panic. It rewards patience with direction.
Patience with direction. I like that. It's different from just stalling.
Very different. Stalling is fear. Patience with direction is a sniper waiting for the shot. You're ready, you're watching, and when you see the value, you strike, even if everyone else is sleeping.
So for the listener who has been refreshing real estate listings every morning, waiting for some headline to tell them the boom is here.
Stop waiting for the noise. The best deals don't announce themselves with fireworks. They happen in quiet conversations, in negotiations where you are the only buyer in the room.
The signal you're waiting for might never come. You have to create the signal.
Exactly. The opportunity is there, but it's whispering, not shouting.
This has been a really refreshing take. We often get so caught up in the macroeconomics, the GDP, the global rates, that we forget real estate is local. It's a house, a seller, a buyer, and a contract.
Mm.
And sometimes the fewer people involved in that equation, the better the outcome.
Couldn't agree more. Strip away the noise, look at the asset, look at the terms.
Here's a thought to leave you with today. We spend this time talking about real estate, how we wait for the noise of the crowd to validate that it's safe to buy a home. But it makes you wonder, where else are you doing this?
That's the question, isn't it?
In your career, your relationships, your investments, are you waiting for everyone else to start moving before you feel safe to take a step? And if so, what price are you paying for that safety? Are you paying a premium for approval rather than trusting the clarity of a quiet moment?
Trust the silence.
Thanks for diving in with us. We'll catch you on the next one.